Once again, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Normally with these videos, we talk to public figures around sport. You see some of the previous ones with Simon Thomas, Ed Balls, Rob Butler, about their experiences with mental health. But I wanted to branch out a little bit, and I've spoken to another friend of mine. Video will be going out shortly. In fact, it will have gone out by the time you see this one. And then I speak to another friend of mine. I live in Birmingham, and they put me in touch with their brother, Shane, who has joined us today. So Shane, I'll give you a little intro in a minute, but welcome.
Thank you. Well, it's nice to be here.
So Shane works in HR for a construction company, and his day-to-day job is around mental health, and is also in charge of an organisation who produce tactical gear called Cynosure, which has a mental health message behind it. So I wanted to get him on and chat to a little bit about his history, his experiences, what affects him day to day, and any advice you can give, like we do with all of these videos, but from a different point of view to what we've been looking at recently. So Shane, as I say, welcome.
Thanks. It's really nice that that you're doing such a good thing. I think it's really good the idea of getting the message out there as much as we can and keep beating the drum until it becomes more and more accepted and mainstream. So well done.
Much appreciated. But as always with these, it's I try and get you guys to open up, talk to us. I'm just here to let you guys talk, really. So as I always say, without further ado, what are your experiences with mental health?
Well, it's quite a broad question actually for me, because obviously a lot of my career has revolved around mental health. And in fact, the term mental health is one I'm less and less comfortable with as we move on. And I think over time, we're probably going to see, without going on too much of a tangent, I think we're going to see that term become less and less frequent. And you'll start seeing stuff like brain health or mind health become more and more prevalent. But my experiences with mental health, as it were, are really personally anyway. I've suffered from issues my whole life. In my teenage years, starting to go through anxiety and things like that. I've had friends who've been the same, been through depression, and obviously been around a hell of a lot of suicide. So sort of from early beginnings, really, it's been a sort of constant thread through my life. And I guess that's probably why I ended up going into the field that I have, and getting the job that I do. On a professional level, my experiences are quite wide ranging as well. So obviously my day job is working for MLAM Construction, and we are very, very big on improving the mind health of people who work in construction. So with that in mind, the fact that I was in the army a long time ago as well, so now I look after the construction guys, and also there's been a little bit around, I play ice hockey, I don't know if you know that, so there's a little bit I do sort of privately, like I haven't got enough on my plate already, in the arena of ice hockey as well. So I guess I've picked the hardest, most macho areas to try and influence people, and it has been a slog. I mean, I remember the days of when I first joined the first business I started doing well-being for. It was a big building manufacturer conglomerate sort of thing, and we did a road show on a double-decker bus. And I just remember my first day having I mean, the guy was only about 55, but he was still very much the old school, the old school ilk, which is exactly the type of person that I'm after now, actually. And he just sort of said to me, "This is just," and it kind of shocked me. I thought, well, I wasn't expecting everybody to be on board straight away, but it was such an abrupt sort of conclusion immediately to the idea of looking at your own mind health. And then from that kind of inspired me then to start reading up on what drives these people to think that way. Is that really him? Does he really believe that? Or is he actually suffering from something? And actually turning inwards and introspective would probably cause a little bit of upset. And I don't know, David, what your experiences are with that, but certainly when I've looked inwards through talking therapies or whatever it might be, that can cause actually some upset, some anxiety before you get better. And it's important for people to understand that, without going in cold, it can set you back as it feels at the time. So yeah, there's some wide ranging experiences there, but I mean, it's hard trying to be brief because I've been around a lot.
Well, you're just picking up on something you said about in being introspective and getting upset before you even start the journey. It's the old adage everyone says, it will get worse before it gets better. And I think that's what a lot of people, like almost every person I've interviewed, myself and just general friends that I talk to, that suffer from anxiety, before you actually start the journey to understanding yourself and improving. And it's a hard journey, but often you have to realize what the problem is, and that can be one of the scariest moments. And I know I've had to deal with that in the past, so I think you're right. One thing, a couple of things I want to touch on with you, obviously we spoke about before the call, but especially obviously you're being a veteran, being in the army, we hear day in day out about the mental health issues of people coming out of the army, being within. I mean, what's your experiences with that and the guys you talk to?
There's it, it's different for everybody, isn't it? I mean, I guess
Yeah.
everyone's experiences of being part of a organized military force is different. And one of the things that annoys me is that there's a seemingly sort of anti-macho culture thing going on right now, and to some extent that's probably helpful. I mean, the old macho culture of never talking about your feelings clearly isn't working, and that's probably nowhere more prevalent than in an army, because you've got a certain image to uphold. You go on a night out, people want to fight you when they find out what's going on, you know, that you're a bunch of squaddies or whatever, and you've always got one guy who's sober on shark watch, we call it, looking out for people making trouble. So there is an image of like, oh yeah, tough guy, you know, walking around in camo, and that you shouldn't talk about it. But I think where I've got a caveat that is the macho culture isn't the only thing that's going on. And I actually think macho culture can actually be quite useful. I think if we are able to change the conversation to be strong, you must talk about your feelings, and quite a manly thing to do is to say to your mate, I'm not feeling very well, and it's not the flu or coronavirus, it's the other pandemic. I've got the you know, my mind's not feeling too great, I'm foggy, I'm a bit depressed, I couldn't get out of bed this morning. It's probably not that common that gets talked about. I actually think that is such a macho, brave, and manly thing to do. It almost harkens back to the guys around the campfires, you know, maybe Vikings or something like that. I've just got this image in my mind that maybe we are a little bit further removed from our feelings than these people that we see historically as macho types and warriors probably were. I mean, the old thing about Vikings actually were really quite vain. They wore a lot of jewelry. They were very proud of gold and quite feminine ways, actually, if you look through history. So I think as culture's gone on through the years, humans have actually, whether it's to do with social media or whatever the reason is, has actually fallen a little bit further away from men talking about their feelings. So I actually think macho culture could be a good thing to reignite that, as long as it's used in the right way and not excluding anybody. But yeah, so getting back onto the question, I think the military's got a lot to answer for, but they're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because admitting there's a bigger problem, which there clearly is, probably creates a little bit of a rod for their own back when it's already hard enough to try and recruit as it is. So I can see where they are, but still something's got to be done.
Yeah, I think you're right about this idea that, I mean, each their own. Everyone can, whatever. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. I think you're right in terms of the culture that we have. We're moving away from this idea that men shouldn't talk about their feelings, and it's not the done thing in this world that a man should talk. When actually, if we, rather than going that's wrong, let's change the idea, and that it isn't a man thing to not talk about your feelings, it's the manly thing to talk about your feelings. And I know that doesn't apply to everyone, and we shouldn't tar everyone with the same brush, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. One of the reasons why I got set up with you on this call, by your brother, and one thing I'm really interested in is the organization that you work with, Cynosure, produce clothing, but with men's mental health in mind. We know that we hear it day in, day out, that suicide is the biggest killer of men under 40. We hear day in, day out that men's mental health is not, that people don't talk about it. It's a real problem. And you guys have set this company up with the aim of kind of going, no, it is an issue, but it shouldn't be. Let's deal with it. And it's a clothing company with a message. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Cynosure really is bred from a love of a few different things. Obviously, there's the thread of the well-being things, which obviously I live and breathe. It's my vocation, but also it's my passion. So I'm quite lucky that I do a job where every day I wake up and I can't wait to crack on. It's cliche, but it's the truth. And also, it was born from a desire of just having good equipment. I mean, I like the outdoors. I like my gear. I'm just one of these people that likes to spend money on expensive boots or whatever it might be. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, I don't just want to start, a clothing brand and just do the same thing that everybody probably does when they start that and try and aim to be the next Gymshark. I want to do something that makes a difference. And I was thinking about it more and more. What can we do? What can we do? And actually, I saw a business, I think it's Contact Coffee, and they're run by veterans as well. And there's a few veteran-owned coffee companies popping up here and there now, both in the US and in the UK. And the way they do their business model is every so often they'll just drive a Land Rover Defender into a shopping centre and they just start selling the coffee, but they also start talking about veterans issues. And I thought, how good would it be if my brand could do something like that, but where the main focus is that? So we're not a not-for-profit yet, although that ultimately will be the aim, is to take the business to non-profit status. But what I want to do is create a business where it's gear that people want to wear and use, and it's pretty Gucci and everyone likes it. But also, by wearing it, you're kind of engaging in, people know you as a double-edged thing. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, Cynosure, yeah, they're the guys who would talk about mental health. So that's kind of my dream, is to have that connection that's so forthright in people's minds. And there's a lot of businesses now that are jumping on the corporate social responsibility stuff, which is really good. You do get the feeling sometimes it's lip service, or it's so they can post a nice profile picture and maybe get a couple of more sales from people. But what I really want to do is make mine so obvious that it's right at the forefront of what we do. And the money obviously then will go towards doing things. Some of those will be, hopefully, where we can get a vehicle, drive it somewhere that's really populated, have people come and talk to us. Yeah, we've got the clothes to look at, but actually the main aim is to say to people, do you fancy a sit down and a coffee, like, we can have a chat. And obviously it would start off with me, but then maybe we can get some people who are trained in talking to people, and we can start reaching a dialogue and doing things practically. Nothing makes me happier than actually getting out into the world and changing things practically, even though it's probably a slower way of doing things, because you can only do so much, but it's a start, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this whole thing, and we keep hearing about talking about it, and we know that talking isn't everything, but if you don't talk, you don't start the process. So I think what you're doing is great. For those watching, there'll be a link to the website, to Cynosure at the end of the video. And it'll be on any social media this goes on. So feel free to have a look, engage with it, and just see what the guys are doing. From your own personal point of view, Shane, on a day-to-day basis, obviously you work in HR, you see HR also deals with mental health of people coming in and out. What are your own experiences on a day-to-day basis? What affects you? What do you see? What do you feel? What can make you positive? What can make you negative?
It's pretty easy to be negative in this game. Obviously, we deal with everything. I mean, we've had people who are having psychotic episodes. We've had people who've attempted to complete a suicide. We've had people with bereavements pretty close to them. In fact, actually, we've had bereavements where it's someone's brother who worked with them on site, and that person obviously needs to keep working to keep the money coming in. And there's various pressures that people are under. And I think what affects me the most is seeing people who are really trying. They are trying to get better, but they haven't reached that level yet where they almost break down enough to say, okay, yeah, I know I need help and I'd like to speak to someone. And a couple of times I've had people speak to me because they see me around and I'm banging the drum of talk to me. So I do get to know the lads, and they'll talk to me a little bit, but when I try to push them on to the next stage, which is where they could really make some headway in getting better, they're kind of reluctant, and that does sometimes get to me, because I see that they're suffering, and there's nothing worse than seeing someone. I mean, you'd have to be kind of a sociopath to see another bloke suffering and think, geez, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? You can take it home with you, but again, and my wife's a big exponent of this. It's just about having the emotional intelligence to know what you're going through at the time. And I was actually talking about this with our MD the other day, about how one of the biggest changes I made in my own personal life was starting to ask myself the question on a day-to-day basis: why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And there are days where I come back and I'll get back to the wife and the dog, and everything's annoying me. The dog's barking, and I'm snappy. I'm not very nice, and I have to sort of press the pause button on life, take stock, and say, why am I being like this? What's happened today? And then you think back, and normally you can find a trigger that's kind of run you back to that. And once you understand that, it's a lot easier to deal with the issues later on, especially anxiety. Actually, I find it works really well for anxiety to say, why do I feel this way? Oh, well, actually, I'm moving house, so maybe that's got a lot to do with it because I'm stressed, whatever it might be. So yeah, that's one of the negative things that can happen. Is just the frustration sometimes of wanting people to get to the next step. Positives, though, when people do take the next step and you really see a difference, they clear up. Their skin looks different sometimes, because they pull themselves out of that depression, or on the way. Many times, so obviously there's a big part of treating these issues, which is physical exercise, and obviously working with Norwich City. Hopefully that's something that we can work together to push. But I think that there are various studies now on the efficacy of doses of exercise, and I'm a big exponent of that. And actually taking that a step further, brain health in general is an often misunderstood area of this business, as I call it, where it's easy to say to people, well, yeah, if you don't want to get cancer, then you need to eat a colourful diet. You need to lay off the sugars, lay off the lard, whatever it might be. It works the same for mental health, I think. So getting people to look after their brain health, and it would be interesting if you could see a sort of a magic scan of everybody's brains before and after they start eating better and looking after themselves, and how much better they would probably feel mentally as well from that.
I utterly agree. I talked to a counsellor, very open about my issues, and the two things you picked up, the two things I want to say is about, she was very insistent that diet, and those that know me will know my diet is awful. My wife tries to make me eat better. It doesn't always work, but my diet is terrible. And I don't deny this, and that often has an effect. And I also like exercising. I want to pick on something you said a minute ago, though, that I noticed, and I'm so glad you did this. You used the phrase attempting to complete a suicide. And it sounds like a weird syntax, but I'm absolutely delighted you said it that way. It's a horrible statement, but it's correct. Don't like, and I'm a massive proponent of this, that we use the phrase commit suicide like it's a crime. Because it used to be. It used to be many moons ago, when we were in the dark ages, it was a crime to attempt suicide. And it's horrible that we still use the phrase this day, like someone shouldn't get to that point, but that doesn't mean they've committed a crime by doing it. So I'm so glad you did that, because that you really thought about that, and I think it's a brilliant thing that we move the terminology and the lexicon away from depression and mental health is something to be ashamed of. Yeah, so that was absolutely brilliant. Conscious I don't want these to go too long, so I do want to just wrap up. But before I do, as always, have you got any advice for either anyone going through anything or anyone who knows anyone going through anything?
Well, first of all, if you're someone who works with other men in particular, and that's obviously where my focus lies at the minute, know the signs, know when people are going through a hard time. If people are hinting, or you see social media posts are weird. There was a good campaign done actually by a group that tries to help out alcoholics, where they set up a mock Instagram account, and every photograph had someone holding a drink, but it was really hard to spot. And they said later on how many people noticed that in every photo they were having a beer and it's those sort of things that are quite hard to tether onto at the minute. But next time you go onto someone's social media, look at it through the lens of someone who's thinking, is there something going on? And maybe one day you might see something and say to someone, are you okay? Is there anything you want to chat about? So that's the first thing I'd say, is just knowing the signs. For people who are going through it at the minute, I think, being kind to yourself, having time and understanding to say, and this is part of the emotional intelligence, to say, yeah, and yeah, sometimes I feel weak, but you know what? I can't keep giving myself a hard time about it, because that's going to happen, and it happens to everybody. And although everyone's got this, I talk about social media quite a lot because it projects a certain image onto the world, doesn't it, of success, or people with their flex. I'm doing really well, I haven't got a care in the world, when actually everybody's probably going through a similarly shitty time, especially at the minute. So I think just being kind to yourself and not judging yourself by other people's standards. Hold yourself accountable by all means, but don't judge yourself against other people's standards. You'll do it in your own time, and things will get better if you apply yourself. So hopefully that helps someone.
Yeah, and that's what I always say about these videos, is if we can help one person get out of the depths that they're in, then we've done our job, and that's all these about. Shane, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. To everyone watching, if you are interested in talking about mental health and interested in outdoor gear, check out Cynosure. The link will follow this. My DMs are always open, as are the Canaries Trust Mental Health. Give us a message if you're struggling, and we'll try and point you in the right direction. But I say, Shane, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for opening up, and hopefully we can catch up another time and see if it's moved on.
Anytime. Thanks, David. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, everyone, take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.